Hey guys, so today I want to talk about digestion and balance. What do I mean by balance? I think there are so many videos out there about how to balance your gut microbiome, how to exercise, not necessarily how to exercise, but how you need to exercise as part of that balance. How do you need to do this and that? And all of this combined when you start, especially if you have an issue with autoimmune response or really more severe issues, it ends up taking your entire day and mental capacity just to think about how to balance these things to be healthy. And in general, there are many people who don't have an autoimmune issue, but they do have digestive issues and they equally want to be healthy and figure out how to bring this into balance as well. How I want to talk about this balance is a little bit different than what's out there, I think, at least none that I've come across. Throughout my life, I've been experimenting a lot because I do get an autoimmune response, which is not just digestive. Among plethora of symptoms, digestion is the most troubling one because, as they say, your gut is your second brain, and honestly it may be your first brain too, because when the gut is off, everything is off. Your creativity, your mental space just basically is just foggy, and you don't feel good, you don't look good, it affects your mood. So anyway, just about everything. Basically, when your gut is not in balance, then you're off balance as well. Your health, your mood, your well-being. I want to mention a few key areas about digestion and this balance, dive into each one a little bit, and then tie it together. And I really hope you stick around towards the end because I do want to tie it together, and I think that's going to be the most important part of the video in my opinion. As part of this balance, I want to talk about food, which includes also food diversity, exercise, cold shock therapy, and maybe the sun a little bit. Okay, let's start with food. The important factor obviously is to find as real of food as possible. In the West, finding real food is almost nearly impossible. It's quite hard because we have a lot of heavily processed foods that we don't know where it's coming from. Every grocery store you walk into, there's a bunch of beautiful, apples and pears. Just about everything is available all of the time. And even if you manage to eat as healthy as possible, right? We're not talking about people with digestive issues who are eating carbs and sugars. I'm not even going to go there because that's a whole different, area. This is about people who are very diligent and are doing everything to their power to be healthy, but they're still having issues with digestion. Let's say you already eat as healthy as humanly possible. I would say this is where seasonality will come in. I think we need to start consuming things seasonally. So just because your produce section has everything all of the time, that doesn't mean it's a good idea to have those, and it's most likely just really means this is extremely heavily processed and you just really don't know where it's coming from. I would stick to farmers markets. I would learn what your local environment produces and the seasons and seasonality of things. So when is the apple season? When is the blueberry season? When is the kale season, let's say, right? And you stick to those seasons. For example, let's say in America it's pretty hard, and in EU it's quite similar, but there's a difference in EU where, let's say I'm in Rome right now, and people seem to really be in tune with seasonality because they are still a bit, I guess, more ancient. Maybe it's just in their blood or something. But right now it's no longer artichoke season. Artichoke is a big portion of Roman kitchen or Italian kitchen. However, even though the stores carry artichoke and the restaurants maybe have something on their menu, in general, right now, Romans do not buy artichoke because it's just it's out of season. It's at the end of the season. And if you do buy it, you'll realize that you have to pretty much get rid of the full flower and only eat the tiny little heart in the middle. Whereas when it's in season, you can eat a lot more of the plant. So for them, it's not even necessarily at this point about the fact that it's out of season, like too far out of season. It's just coming out of season now, recently, and they're already not consuming it. And I think this is the right way of doing things, because if you want to eat healthy, fresh vegetables, it needs to be in season. I tried many oranges here and it's just garbage, because the orange season here has passed, and everybody says, like, why do you keep trying to buy oranges? Well, because I saw a tree that still had one. But anyway, we need to educate ourselves on seasonal foods and understand the market a little bit better and stick to our local seasonal foods, fruits and vegetables. Of course, if your neighboring country has their season and it's a very easy transport from, let's say, Mexico or Costa Rica, I would imagine that's okay too, but seasonality to assure freshness and as little for them to be chemically ridden as possible is important. I don't know if that sentence made sense. Now, seasons is one when it comes to food. This is all part of the balance. So I'm getting to how this balance works. Seasonal roots, fruits, vegetables, this is one area of the balance. Another is diversity. Diversity of foods you're consuming. As I mentioned, there are lots of videos on how to balance your microbiome by, how much fat you should eat, how much this, how much that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right? Like all this fine tuning. But it feels very unnatural, because who has time for such crazy calculations just to get things right? But if we're living a natural, normal human life, we wouldn't have to worry about these things. We're so far removed in the West how people used to live in the past that, now we're just like so robotic with every single thing. When I visit Armenia or when I visited Israel, these cultures were very similar in the way they eat food or put a table together to share meals. Even in restaurants, like let's say if I go to a restaurant in, again, Israel, I ordered a dish, but they brought an entire tray with all these little things on it, right? A little bit of cheese, a little bit of this. It's bite size, but this is all you need to balance this, right? You need a little bit of probiotic, a little bit of fat, a little bit of this. I think we need to go back to the way people used to live a little bit, go back the way people used to share meals. And of course, this comes from a culture where people also used to grow their own vegetables and farm and have gardens. We were not farmers in Armenia, but we grew everything ourselves. We had animals too for our meat, for our cheese and butter and just about everything. We made everything, even as a non-farming family. And granted, these were times when that's all you can do, because there's no prosperity like in America where you get to do, sit at a computer and work, and then that sounds awful. I was going to say that's prosperity, huh? Right? You sit at your desk, you work, you get money, and then you go drink it away, and then repeat. That's prosperity now. Oh my God, I just heard myself say that, and it's just sad. So as we prospered, we have become miserable, sad, and unhealthy, it sounds like. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have any little bit of area to grow your herbs, to grow something, or to make your own fermented vegetables, we really need to start getting in touch with this kind of lifestyle. Why was it so diverse and important or easy, natural to have all these things back home, or back in the days, let's call it? It's because if you have a cow that produces milk, then you can't obviously be wasteful and throw away the milk. You're not going to drink all that milk, which I think we're starting to establish slowly. Humans shouldn't be consuming milk just like a beverage. But to not be wasteful, we would make butter, we would make ghee, we would make sour cream, yogurt, cheese. So all of these different uses so that it can preserve, because cheese lasts longer, yogurt lasts longer, right? Butter just lasts. So same with vegetables and fruits. We would ferment them, we would dry them. So naturally would create your probiotics and your healthy fats and so on, because it's just the life you're living. So I guess this is why it's so difficult in the West to be in balance, because we're trying to mimic that old lifestyle by bringing it into this stagnant, inactive, miserable place we've found ourselves to, where we think we're doing so well, yet it just seems to completely backfire. We get into our little cars and drive and park somewhere close, so we have to walk as little as possible and not be cold or hot or whatever, or inconvenienced, which I'll get to the cold in a second. And then and the hot. Then we engage in unhealthy pastimes like drinking alcohol or whatever people are into. We exercise very little, or if we happen to just walk a little bit from one place to another, we consider that exercise. And we just all in all end up just not being very inactive and eating very incorrectly. And then as far as air, heat and cold, also avoiding just about all of it. And then wondering why we have issues. So number one was food, and the balance basically includes as healthy as possible. So stick to seasonal, learn what seasonal is for you and your location, diversity of foods, and also making sure that you're not constantly eating the same thing. Your body gets used to that same thing. You need to diversify, you need to shock it a little, change it a little bit. And honestly, it's difficult, especially if you have autoimmune condition. I personally have a hard time with that, because the second I make a mistake, then my reflex is to just avoid that food, because how many times can you get sick and then it takes sometimes weeks to recover from a single mistake? But we need to find the right balance and fine tune it. And it would have been a lot easier if it's just the lifestyle itself. We just put a pause a little bit. I'm not anti-progress. It's just not at a cost of human well-being and human relationships and way of life. So with autoimmune, it's even harder. And what we end up doing actually is just eliminate. And I think I'm starting to realize it's just not right. I have not completely embraced this, what I'm saying, in the West, because in the West I'm constantly sick and it's very hard to take these risks. However, I cannot wait to start growing my own vegetables. I cannot wait to have my own land and start going back to this lifestyle. The way I start observing and noticing this actually is through travels, and all of this cold and food and exercise, it just all comes together, because when you travel, you walk a lot more. You no longer are in the comfort of your... Let's go to exercise actually, because it will come in. Exercise doesn't mean only you just go to the gym and you have to just pump weights. It also doesn't feel natural, and not many people have time to spend time to go to the gym, to do this, come back, shower, and then go about their day. So it needs to be natural and accessible. I am working out, and the best thing I could find is being able to have dumbbells around me or kettlebells around me, because it's just hard to dedicate so much time to exercise when it's just somehow not happening naturally. But if you're in a metropolitan city like New York City, you're gonna walk and bike and go up and down stairs, and that's actually good enough, because you're doing this all considering you get out of the house, right? Like, obviously, if you don't leave the house, this is not pertaining to you. But if you're an active person, social person, you aren't stagnant and just at your desk the entire time, then you're going to naturally move around a lot. So when it comes to exercise, I would say walking is extremely important. So if we go back to the ancient life, people would walk, jump, go up mountains, hunt, right? There's just so much movement. Obviously, that's not the world we live in anymore. So what we do have is walking, and we should try to do as much of it as possible throughout our day. And I don't mean just buzzing around the house. That's not walking. You need to actually be walking. Like, for example, if you just go for a walk, it's not only the exercise that's helping you, it's also you're distressing, you start organizing your mind. So anything that could have been very stressful on your body starts releasing, because you're out of an environment that was stressing you, and now you're just in an organizational mode. And let's hope your walk is a pleasant one, because depends what part of town you live in. I don't know. I've seen some LA and Oregon footages that might not be the most pleasant walk or de-stressing walk, let's call it. But let's pretend it's a pleasant walk. You will feel something drastically change within the 40-minute mark. 45 minutes, you just feel like, oof, something seems to unlock, or I don't even know how to explain it. But obviously, if you don't have 40 minutes to walk, any amount is good. But at the same time, if you do not walk or move 40 minutes a day, I think that's an issue. So I personally try to go when I'm in US. I go for a 50 to an hour walk, and of course I exercise, I do yoga, so I still try to be very active, but I'm not a social person, so it's very hard for me to just naturally, I'm not out and about, right? I'm just in my zone and doing my thing, so I have to actually just be like, all right, time to walk, time to do this. So hopefully when I have my land, and if my land has any heels, hopefully all this will become very natural, and it will provide the exercise I need naturally, and I won't feel like a freaking robot. Time to walk, time to eat X amount of fat. So walking as an exercise is one, and of course exercise itself, like going to the gym, is another. Yoga, any kind of movement, dancing, I never think of dancing, but every now and then I remember that thing exists, and I put on some music I like and I dance for a few songs. It's just, my God, it's just so nice. It uplifts your mood. It's just, it's amazing. And I don't know why I don't often think of this to do. And I literally just thought of it randomly. It wasn't even part of my my preparedness of this video. All right, let's see. Let's go into experiencing shock. So I'm talking about cold shock therapy. Obviously, not everyone has access to Russian bathhouses, right? To go into, to dip yourself into an ice bath and go into a 240-degree sauna, then deep in a... So I've done this when I lived in New York, but at the time I wasn't really focused on digestion, to be honest. I was really trying to cook my body not to be as cold as I am. I'm usually just always freaking freezing, and it's an issue. So I did that, and it was amazing. I actually got the results I was wanting, where I could you finish the shock therapy, then you walk outside like in the heart of the winter with a t-shirt, and you're like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, it just, your body starts not just the heat and cold become the same, and you become like feeling okay. And then I've been in environments when I have full control of my thermostat, and boy, I just abuse that heat, and then next thing I know, I can't tolerate the cold at all, and neither do I want to. So this is a problem area for me. But what I've noticed after years of avoiding the cold and constantly wanting the warmth, one thing I noticed every time I travel to New York in the winter, or to Europe, where all these stone buildings are just so cold inside, even if it's summer, it's kind of like the air is very just crisp and cold inside these stone buildings, I noticed that my digestion gets way better. Like way better. Let's call it New York because the food is all US food, but my digestion gets so much better in New York because I'm packed, obviously, like I pack very small, and then I'm limited to how much comfort I can create for myself because I don't have a hold of my own thermostat. And what ends up happening is I walk out, I'm freezing, shivering, and I come back in, I'm warm again, and so on and so forth. I'm constantly uncomfortable. And as David Sinclair, I think it was David Sinclair who said, he's a longevity scientist, and he said one thing they noticed is for longevity, the most important thing is, besides of course diet and fasting, it's to always be uncomfortably cold or uncomfortably hot. So this works out for me because usually I'm always uncomfortably cold, even in the heat. But either way, this is why I probably have noticed that I do so much better with my health when I am outside of my comfort zone and I cannot regulate things, and all of a sudden I'm just like freezing, then I'm fine. So it becomes a form of a cold shock therapy. And even if let's say you live in Texas and neither of these things are accessible to you, like the Russian bathhouses and cold shock therapy, just taking cold showers is actually another form because it's uncomfortable. Taking a cold shower or going back and forth between the hot and cold, it's very uncomfortable. And I tried to do it. It's so uncomfortable. So I much rather, go into the cold outside than consciously turn the knob, but it appears to be so important for health. And why is this important? Because when we exercise, for example, our muscles contract, and through the cold shock therapy, it's actually quite similar. Our muscles contract, and this is so important for our lymphatic system. Our lymphatic system is all these nodes and vessels, and this is how our body circulates these fluids and recycles and gets rid of toxins. This is very similar to our veins and our blood system, blood circulation. However, our blood has the heart to pump it. So the heart pumps the blood and the blood circulates, whereas the lymphatic system does not have a central pump. So it relies on muscle contraction to cleanse, to move, to work. So if we're stagnant and if we're comfortable, none of that is happening. So basically your vessels can completely get clogged and cluttered, and all sorts of health issues can emerge, and not just digestive. This is very important for cleansing, clearing, and for having a healthy, functional body. The next, I would say, is so that touched both on heat and cold, and I think this is where I'll mention AC, the AC and the sun, I should say. The use of air conditioning in the United States is absolutely insane. I mean, we turn the summers into winters and winters into summers, and I don't understand what's the mentality. Just the waste. I'm not even the type who just is concentrated on the wastefulness of everything. I'm not an environmentalist, but it is extremely wasteful and unnecessary. Sun is source of life, and we've been lied to and told that we should protect ourselves from the sun. People go outside and put chemicals on their skin to protect from the sun, and what actually happens is these chemicals interact with the sun, and that's what causes issues. I would not be concerned about skin cancer if I am under the sun naturally. Obviously, I'm not talking about just lay down and sleep under the sun for hours. You'll burn. You'll get a 3rd-degree burn, obviously. Was it 1st degree, 3rd degree, whichever one is that, you can harm yourself. I'm talking about going about your day, going about your life, and even if that means you have some activity happening outside and you happen to be under the sun quite a bit. The sun is not our enemy. This is a source of vitamin D. So we block the sun, and then we go take a chemical form of vitamin D to replace it. Similarly, we block the sun to protect ourselves from the sun, but that very same protection ends up causing chemical reaction, and then that's how you get skin cancer. And this is really troublesome because, again, sun is source of life and we shouldn't be blocking it. And in US, God, in the middle of summer, I have to carry around a jacket because, God forbid, you enter a store or a restaurant, it's just freaking shattering. Like, it is insane with that fake air. I'm getting passionate. With that fake air blowing at you. And it's just always these fake airs, whether it's winter or summer, just unnatural airs blowing at you. We're so unhealthy and so far detached from what's really good for us. It's just crazy. We've been so lied to, so deceived, and it's just really time to understand what's what, right? I've never heard of skin cancer until I moved to United States. And guess what? I come from a family of farmers who, under the Mediterranean sun, they would be outside hours on end every day working on their lands. Okay? Nobody would catch skin cancer, and nobody was using sunscreen either. Yet in America, you have skin cancer while people are just so adamant about all this, showering themselves with these chemicals and then going and laying under the sun for no reason at all. That sunbathing thing is quite hilarious to me. Just go outside, do something. Just go cycle. Just go play. Like, you want to be under the sun, like just laying there. Anyway, let me not get off off the rails. Okay, so now we talked about the food, exercise, hot and cold, the sun versus AC, and the fake airs, and last but not least, sweat. Obviously, a lot of these things like exercise and sun also, it's good to sweat. It causes sweat, and we should not shy away from that. We should absolutely try to push ourselves to sweat. And if we can't naturally, do that, if you in the summer allowed yourself to be uncomfortably hot, you would sweat. And that is so important to again release some things from your body, just to cleanse. Sweat is extremely important. That's why we say exercise until you sweat, or go to a sauna if you have access to one. I hope to have access to one on my land when I have my land, when I find my home. Okay, so I talked a lot, but to sum it up, what I'm trying to say here is food, exercise, sweat, heat, cold, and natural things like natural sun are very important factors of health and well-being and your digestion. But also, this is what brings balance. But instead of perhaps trying to obsessively stick to this lifestyle that we've created that to be honest, we don't seem to be happy in, right? I don't think an average person living in their little cubicle and just working away on their laptop is a happy person. So maybe we should start thinking to put away what we've learned, what's been shoved into our throats, right? And take a step back and think, is this natural? Is this what we were made for? Is this really the life you want to live? And if that's not, then start working towards backtracking a little bit. Backtracking doesn't have to mean stopping progress, but it is maybe to actually pause and reassess, right? We're fast tracking to AI and these high societies and fake foods and lab-made foods and all these technologies that tell you how much you ran, how much you walked, how much. My God, isn't that exhausting? Like, is that really fun? I mean, I know some people are excited. I used to be excited over technology and all the things we can do. And it is exciting, but not at the cost it's coming with. Isolation, detachment from natural, real, organic life. We as species were not built to live this life. We aren't evolved to live this life. Granted, there are forces who want to genetically modify us as well to be able to maybe be on par with this lifestyle, but that's a whole different story. I would say more I talk to people one-on-one, more people step back and are trying to be honest with themselves, more they realize that the most important thing we have is family, relationships, health, well-being, love, and just happiness. Well, all of those things create the happiness. And I think that's the message here. I think we should start looking a little bit back. I'm a very future focused person, and this is very odd for me to think this way or to say these things out loud. I'm not nostalgic or stuck in the past. I'm actually quite the opposite. But maybe it's time to, if we keep going full circles, maybe instead of having this full circle coming to this peak where it collapses to its face to start over, maybe we're like, you know what, let's just turn this into an oval and maybe it's time to just get back into the natural human life. All right, I think that's all for this video. Thank you.